Cornered and accused of stealing $3,000, Tang Xiu endured endless suspicion and loathing from his relatives. His lips were nipped raw from stress, but despite the mist filling his eyes, he stood firm, refusing the accusations. This agonizing domestic scene The pressure intensified as Aunt Meiyun and Xiangfei, Yanning and Xiangfei, mercilessly attacked Tang Xiu's character, citing his disastrous academic performance and bad behavior since the accident. Su Lingyun, near despair, had to plead. In the safety of his mother's embrace, Tang Xiu's soul, returned from the Immortal World after a disastrous tribulation failure, questioned his reality. He remembered achieving the pinnacle of cultivation, only to be betrayed by his closest friends, and even his longtime lover, Xu Kengcheng, who coveted his ancient god vestige item. The familiarity of his mother's scent calmed his 10,000-year-old soul. Realization struck. This was not a heart demon. His soul had returned to his original earth body. The accident a year ago had sent his soul to the Immortal World, while his body here lived in an ignorant state, absorbing information like an observer. 10,000 years there equaled 1 year here. The unexpected roar shocked his relatives. Su Lingyun panicked, asking what was wrong, while the others mistakenly blamed the Shangwen family for driving the ignorant boy insane. Su Xiangfei, his cousin, shattered the dramatic moment, mocking Tang Xiu, calling the immortal figures he shouted about bosses in a game. This final mockery snapped Tang Xiu's patience. After 10 millennia in the Immortal World, Tang Xiu's soul returned to his 16-year-old body. The regret was overwhelming. He had focused so much on cultivation that his mother, Su Lingyun, became his heart's demon. Now, given a second chance, an intense vow surged within him. He would protect her at all costs. His entire being had undergone an earth-shaking change. His senses sharpened tenfold. His mind operated nearly 100 times faster, and the imposing aura accumulated over 10,000 years of high command settled upon him. The newfound clarity meant Tang Xiu could no longer tolerate the constant ridicule from his maternal relatives, Zhang Meiyun and her son, Su Xiangfei. Their cruel whispers about his mother and his failure instantly stoked his immortal fury. He rose, the air chilling instantly as his cultivated dominance erupted. Tang Xiu scolded them without hesitation. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, causing shivers among the guests, and the mother and son were instantly throttled into silence by the sheer force of his presence. The silence was broken by Su Shangwen, Tang Xiu's uncle, who was unnerved by his nephew's dangerous transformation. Su Shangwen stood up, attempting to reassert his authority through bluster. Tang Xiu, who allows you to shout here? Do you even know high and low? Stealing money makes you feel entitled? Tang Xiu, however, merely cast a sidelong glance, utterly unimpressed by the man he now saw as a mere mortal ant. The accumulated power and influence Su Shangwen had garnered over 20 years in the market utterly failed to suppress the returned immortal. Tang Xiu ignored the threat and launched his counterattack, systematically listing the Su Shangwen family's hypocrisy. What qualifications do you have to speak of high and low? You dumped grandfather and grandmother in the rural area, forcing them to suffer, while demanding payment from us. He broke off a finger to emphasize each accusation. Your family constantly insults the elders. Every banquet, you exclude us from the main table, citing too many people. Su Shangwen's face turned scarlet, his usual tactics of intimidation completely ineffective against Tang Xiu's verbal precision and fierce demeanor. Cornered and humiliated in front of the family, Su Shangwen completely lost control. You bastard with no life lesson. Since your mother won't teach you, I will. Driven by shame, he raised his palm, aiming a fierce slap right toward Tang Xiu's face. Tang Xiu sneered. For 10,000 years, anyone who dared to lift a hand against him was instantly annihilated. Instinctively, he intended to unleash an immortal technique to punish this ignorant mortal. His face held a look of utter, lethal arrogance. The intended immortal attack failed. Tang Xiu's complexion became deathly white as he realized the truth. He was on Earth, an ordinary, frail 16-year-old body, devoid of elemental force. He was weaker than an average person. In the brief moment of his stunning realization, Su Shangwen's palm was mere inches from his face. Furious and humiliated that he, the great immortal master, might be slapped by a mere mortal, Tang Xiu roared, his voice laced with hysteria. "Su Shangwen, you dare!" Su Shangwen paused, momentarily intimidated, but quickly reaffirmed his arrogance. "I am your uncle. I have the qualifications to teach you." He renewed his strike with added force. However, that hesitation was the chance Tang Xiu needed. The immortal master's reflexes, though housed in a weak body, allowed him to instantly evade the blow. He flashed his body to one side, avoiding the impending slap. But the relief was short-lived, as a sharp, resounding smack echoed in the room. Tang Xiu spun around in utter consternation, only to discover the horrifying truth. Su Shangwen's palm had landed squarely on his mother's face. Su Lingyuan, standing close behind him after hugging him moments before, had taken the full force of the blow. Regret, pain, searing anger, and remorse instantly engulfed Tang Xiu. His mother silently absorbed the pain, not even struggling against her own brother. The sight shattered Tang Xiu's composure. In a flash of cold clarity, Tang Xiu analyzed the scene. Su Shangwen's arm length and position meant the strike should never have reached his mother if it were an accident. The slight forward lean of Su Shangwen's body, combined with the mocking, almost triumphant smirk lingering on his lips, confirmed it. He had intentionally redirected the blow to strike Su Lingyun out of vengeful frustration. The realization struck Tang Xiu's reverse scale, the one thing an immortal master cannot tolerate, and his fury reached its absolute peak. He wanted to rush forward and tear Su Shangwen apart. Tang Xiu suppressed the suicidal impulse. Rushing the black bear-like Su Shangwen in his current weak state would only lead to further humiliation. He needed a strategy. No magic treasures, no cultivation base, just a flimsy body. Staring coldly at his uncle, Tang Xiu's mind raced through the countless cultivation techniques he knew. A solution flashed into his mind: the origin ignition art, a very common Immortal World technique designed to temporarily boost physical strength by consuming a small amount of life potential, perfect for an average person in an emergency. Within moments, Tang Xiu concentrated the temporary strength gained from the origin ignition art. It wouldn't last long, but it was enough. He feigned losing his composure completely, roaring like an angry, grieving child. "Su Shangwen, why did you hit my mother? I will fight you!" His shout and dash toward Su Shangwen seemed like the reckless action of a 16-year-old driven mad by rage, the perfect camouflage for his calculated attack. He had adapted fully to his Earth status, and now he made his move. Su Shangwen mocked the charging, thin figure. "Rash fellow, I was afraid you wouldn't come." He reiterated his lie. "I meant to teach you, but you moved aside, causing your mother to suffer." Su Shangwen raised his hand and pushed casually, expecting the frail Tang Xiu to be easily diverted and collapse. He was vastly underestimating the 10,000 years of fighting experience and the temporally boosted strength of the origin ignition art. A horrifying "kacha" sound cracked through the room. Su Shangwen's arm instantly dislocated. Before he could even register the pain or cry out, a tremendous, unequal force smashed into his abdomen. Tang Xiu used the origin ignition art strength perfectly, hitting the unprepared target. Su Shangwen felt all the liquor and food he consumed violently churn. Tang Xiu followed up with a chaotic, rapid stamp of palms, landing carelessly but effectively on his body, preventing him from spitting or breathing. Under the fierce, unexpected onslaught, Su Shangwen was reduced to a weak, drowning man. He thrashed his hands unconsciously, desperate for something to grab, utterly disoriented. He felt dizzy, sorrowful, and overwhelmed by pain. As consciousness began to fade, he faintly heard screams and wails echoing around him. "Help! He killed him! So much blood! Call the police!" The bewildered uncle couldn't comprehend how a birthday party had descended into violence, all for a mere $3,000 argument, before finally blacking out. The fight lasted mere seconds, but the impact was absolute. Tang Xiu had neutralized the immediate threat, protecting his mother with cunning and force, proving that immortal experience triumphs over mortal brawn, even in a frail body. The room was in chaos, but Tang Xiu was calm. He looked at the wreckage of the confrontation, knowing this was only the first step in reclaiming his destiny and ensuring his mother's safety and happiness. The sheer silence of shock that followed the flurry of blows was more deafening than the screaming. The guests realized the skinny boy they usually ignored had just systematically dismantled the powerful Su Shangwen. Tang Xiu, though physically exhausted, felt a powerful sense of satisfaction. His Immortal World instincts had allowed him to exploit the smallest opening, turning a casual push into a crippling defeat. This confrontation marked the true return of the Immortal Master to Earth. Tang Xiu's initial rush of anger was now replaced by cool calculation. He needed to get his mother out of this toxic environment immediately. The police would soon arrive due to the guests' panic, and while he was legally protected, self-defense, even if brutal, he needed to secure his mother and plan their next steps away from the grasping Su family. His primary goal remained unchanged, securing his mother's well-being and beginning his true cultivation journey on Earth. The intensity of the origin ignition art left Tang Xiu shaky, feeling the minor cost to his life potential. He realized how desperate his situation was. He must find elemental energy immediately. His memories of 10 millennia held countless powerful cultivation methods, but all required a minimal foundation he currently lacked. This temporary fix would not suffice against future threats. The humiliation of being almost slapped by a mortal cemented his need for power. As they walked away, Tang Xiu mentally reviewed the origin ignition art. It was a short-term gamble that paid off. He needed a way to restore his physical vitality while simultaneously drawing in the sparse earth spiritual qi. Perhaps the simplest beginner technique, the minor circulation scripture, could be adapted to his current weakened state. The path to immortalhood on Earth would be slow and difficult, but necessary. Tang Xiu knew his actions had severe consequences. The Su family would not take the humiliation lightly. Su Shangwen would recover and retaliate. He must prepare. But for now, the most crucial task was comforting his shaken mother and finding them a safe haven. He held her close, feeling the deep maternal warmth he had missed for 10,000 years. The Immortal Master was home, and he would ensure this world would never harm his treasure again. The brutal confrontation ended in chaos. As the house descended into panic, the sight of Tang Xiu and Su Shangwen lying unconscious in a pool of blood shocked the remaining guests. Screams and cries for help filled the air. Within minutes, the local police force arrived. Strangely, just as they reached the scene, Su Shangwen stirred, shortly followed by Tang Xiu. Seeing the police, Su Shangwen's face twisted with immediate rage, pointing an accusatory finger. Su Shangwen immediately launched into a fabricated accusation. "Comrade police force, he stole $3,000 from my family. Grasp him." However, the leading officer, policewoman Cheng Su-mei, ignored him completely. She announced that they were responding to a report of a human life case and demanded to know who reported it. Under her fierce gaze, Zhang Meiyun nervously confessed that she reported the police out of panic, mistakenly thinking Su Shangwen had died when he bled out, causing her to lie about the severity. Unsatisfied, Su Shangwen tried again, citing his injuries and repeating the theft accusation. He then attempted to leverage his connections, boastfully mentioning his friendships with Police Brigade Wangdui and Chief Deng. Cheng Sui-mei, clearly finding Su Shangwen's arrogant manner repugnant, met his attempt with scathing sarcasm. "How you did not say that the city bureau is your family opens," she taunted, refusing to grant him any deference. Su Shangwen was rendered speechless, his attempts at intimidation backfiring spectacularly. Ignoring Su Shangwen, Cheng Shui-mei proceeded to inspect the injuries. She quickly determined Su Shangwen only suffered an arm dislocation and minor bruising. Conversely, Tang Xiu was gravely injured, with multiple wounds to his waist and abdomen, spitting blood and barely conscious. The vast pool of extravasated blood on the floor was perplexing. suggesting internal injuries far beyond the visible trauma. Chang Shui-mei asked Tang Xiu about his condition, but he weakly shook his head, insisting he was all right. There's worry if he went to the hospital. Confirming there was no fatality, the case was reduced to an ordinary public security matter. Other police officers suggested escalating the case to the city bureau's Captain Wang Dui, whom Su Shangwen had name-dropped. Chang Shui-mei, however, retorted angrily that they shouldn't waste the bureau's resources on such small matters. Her subordinates were stunned. Chang Shui-mei typically avoided such petty disputes. They soon realized her motive. She detested the aggressive, bossy attitude of men like Su Shangwen, especially those who boasted of ties to Captain Wang Hao, ensuring she would handle the investigation herself. Following Chang Shui-mei's orders, the criminal police quickly began their search. Su Shangfei and Su Yaning, the cousins, turned deathly white, their bodies trembling. They desperately wanted the police to stop investigating the fabricated $3,000 theft, but they lacked the courage to confess. Their father, Su Shangwen, mistakenly comforted them, assuming they were still frightened by the fight. The investigation rapidly yielded results. A criminal police officer soon discovered the $3,000 cash hidden in a closet in a back bedroom. Crucially, they also found a clear handprint on the dusty top of the closet. Chang Shui-mei immediately locked her gaze on Su Shangfei. She demanded an explanation for the handprint found at the hiding spot. Su Shangfei's tight nerves collapsed. Panicked, he instantly shifted the blame, shouting, "It wasn't my fault. My sister made me hide it. She said she hates Tang Xiu, and since he is just a rash, stained fellow, he wouldn't be able to argue." Su Yaning, overwhelmed by the attention, could only stammer weakly, claiming it was merely a joke intended to frighten Tang Xiu. The intent to frame them was laid bare. The scandalous revelation quickly spread beyond the bedroom. Guests who had remained for the evening banquet, neighbors, and friends who gathered to watch the spectacle all realized the truth. Su Shangwen's household had orchestrated the theft accusation to maliciously frame their orphaned nephew. The crowd erupted in discussion, condemning the top-quality family for their cruelty. Sympathy poured out for Su Lingyun and Tang Xiu, while the Su Shangwen household was subjected to withering stares of loathing and contempt. Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun felt their faces burn with shame. Attempting to salvage the situation, Su Shangwen approached Su Shangwen, smiling weakly, arguing that hiding one's own money isn't a crime, and begging her to consider the incident a misunderstanding. Chang Shangwen's smile turned icy. She countered him by reciting Chinese criminal law statutes. Slandering or fabricating facts constitutes a crime punishable by up to 3 years imprisonment. Worse, because his beating led to Tang Xiu's severe injuries, spitting blood and stupor, he had also committed intentional injury, liable for 3 to 10 years. Ignoring their frantic entreaties, Chang Shangwen declared the case serious and ordered the full questioning of all relevant personnel. Su Shangwen immediately looked to Su Lingyun for salvation, begging her to intervene. Zhang Meiyun, humbled, also pulled her children forward and softly implored her sister-in-law to settle the joke privately. Su Lingyun simply turned away. Infuriated, Su Shangwen resorted to threats. "Sister, if you must handle the matter, we will never communicate again." He then delivered the ultimate blow, his voice ice-cold. "Don't forget Tang Xiu still attends Star City First High. With his results and conduct, if I pull my connections, he can be expelled from school at any time." Su Lingyun's body visibly trembled, forced to turn and face her cruel brother. Su Shangwen, unmasked and cornered, showed his true, shameless colors by threatening to use his substantial connections to have Tang Xiu expelled from high school. Despite his moral bankruptcy, the threat of his wealth and influence in Star City was undeniable. This malicious ultimatum forced Su Mingyun to choose between legal justice and her son's future, causing her to tremble in turmoil. Everyone present expected the mild-mannered, quiet Su Lingyun to concede. However, the emotional dam burst. With an unprecedented surge of fury, she stood on tiptoes, raised her hand, and delivered a sharp, resounding slap across Su Shangwen's face. The shockwave of the sound silenced the entire living room. Never before had she shown such spirit, much less struck someone. Witnessing his mother's defiance filled Tang Xiu with overwhelming relief and happiness. But the profound emotional shift, from great sadness to great joy, combined with the life force consumed by the origin ignition art earlier that day, proved fatal to his weak physical body. He managed only 3 brief laughs before his vision swam and his body finally gave out, plunging him into unconsciousness. Su Shangwen's fury boiled over. Humiliated by his younger sister, he bellowed and lunged to retaliate violently. But before his rage could find purchase, a pair of ice-cold handcuffs swiftly locked around his wrist. The policewoman, Tang Xiu, who had witnessed the full extent of his cruelty and threats, had stepped in immediately to prevent further assault. With order restored, Tang Xiu quickly took command. She dispatched an officer to take the injured Tang Xiu and his mother, Su Lingyun, to the hospital immediately. For the rest of the Su family members, the planners and accomplices, her command was swift and final. They were all to be brought back to the police station for official questioning, concluding the chaotic drama in the living room. The wedding banquet had ended in absolute tragedy for Su Shangwen's immediate family. Although they expected to be released from the station easily, their reputation was irreparably ruined. Su Shangfei and Su Yanin, unable to grasp the severity of their actions, stood blankly. Hysterical, Su Shangfei screamed that Tang Xiu was intentionally noisy and had orchestrated their downfall, but no one paid the frantic cousin any heed. Late that night, in a quiet room at Star City People's Hospital, starlight streamed through the window, illuminating Tang Xiu's pale, delicate face. Su Lingyun, resting nearby, was roused by an incomprehensible sound. Her son, still unconscious, was muttering obscure, towering phrases, the mnemonics of the ancient heavenly art of cosmic genesis, a technique far beyond human understanding. Observing his demeanor, Su Lingyun felt a sliver of relief. She rationalized that her high school son was merely reciting difficult classical Chinese literature. Though the words were obscure, his face was unusual, stretched into a serene crescent moon smile. She dismissed her initial fear, believing he was simply processing academic material, and hesitated to wake him. Suddenly, Su Lingyun gasped. The starlight outside the window became blindingly dazzling, coalescing into countless specks that pierced the glass and silently merged into Tang Xiu's pale body. A faint, cream-colored mist began to gather around him, lingering like an illusionary bubble, her into hallucination. What Su Lingyun failed to notice was that as the spiritual mist dissipated, Tang Xiu's eyelashes fluttered open. Internally, he was stunned. He had failed for 100 years in the Immortal World to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Yet in this moment, after his body was reduced to a return-to-zero state by fainting, he had succeeded. He had reached the first layer, Star's tyrannical body. The breakthrough had fundamentally changed his destiny. Tang Xiu wakes up screaming, drenched in sweat from the agonizing pain of absorbing the Immortal World's knowledge. His mother, Su Lingyun, rushes to his side, her heart heavy with fear, believing it was the recurring nightmare. Tang Xiu, still reeling from the cosmic force pain, carefully reassures her without revealing the overwhelming truth of his past life. Though he trusts his mother implicitly, Tang Xiu understands that extraordinary power brings unimaginable danger. To protect Su Lingyun's peaceful life from those who might use her or target him, he deliberately lies, nodding gently to confirm her assumption that it was just a nightmare, steeling himself to bear the weight of his secret alone. As Su Lingyun leaves to prepare hot water, Tang Xiu finally exhales the pain he held in. He laughs hysterically, realizing the extreme luck involved in activating the ancient heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Despite lacking qualifications, the near-death experience forced his body to accept the Star Force, granting him the foundation for cultivation. The joy quickly fades into silent dread. He remembers the heavenly art's fatal flaw. It requires immense physical power, the Star's tyrannical body, quenched by countless rare herbs and materials. Without this foundation, absorbing the Star Force would inevitably lead to his body exploding, a terrifying fate he barely avoided in the Immortal World's ultimate tribulation. Returning to Earth after 10,000 difficult years, Tang Xiu refuses to risk exploding his body again. Coupled with the painful memories of betrayal associated with this divine skill, he decisively abandons the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. On peaceful Earth, high military force isn't essential, allowing him to choose a safer, yet equally formidable cultivation path. With the heavy burden of dangerous cultivation lifted, Tang Xiu feels immense relief. As a former supreme of the Immortal World and grandson of a holy sect leader, he has access to countless techniques and secrets. While others struggle to find a single art, Tang Xiu finds himself spoiled for choice, reflecting on golden goose mnemonics and blue flame art, worrying only about which optimal technique to select. Su Lingyun returns with hot water, seeing Tang Xiu's thoughtful look, and assuming he worries about his expulsion from Star City First High. She apologizes deeply for slapping his uncle, fearing the consequences. Tang Xiu quickly reassures her, prioritizing her honor over staying in the school, smiling gently to ease her guilt. As Su Lingyun helps him bathe, Tang Xiu, distracted by planning his new cultivation path, suddenly realizes his pants have slipped off. Flustered, he takes the towel from her, recovering his dignity. She mentions the doctor noted his chronic secret illness has vanished, prompting Tang Xiu to promise excitedly that he can regain the top-grade rank. Reassured by Tang Xiu's health and renewed determination, Su Lingyun handles his discharge paperwork. Before he steps into the school gate, she stops him, smoothing his clothes, worry still visible as she mentions alternative schools if First High won't take him. Tang Xiu holds her gently, giving her a promise of complete trust and protection. Turning away quickly to hide his own emotion, Tang Xiu walks to a corner of the building and secretly watches his mother. Seeing her eyes tear up, filled with relief and gratification, Tang Xiu finally allows his own tears to fall, reflecting 10,000 years of separation and devotion, silently swearing that from this day forward, he would be the one protecting their family. Tang Xiu steps back into his high school classroom. The atmosphere is suffocating, thick with the tension of looming college entrance exams. Students are writing furiously or reciting texts, all focused on the countdown displayed prominently on the blackboard. Tang Xiu, now bearing the consciousness of an immortal emperor, feels utterly detached from this frantic juvenile world. He reminds himself, his sole purpose here is to fulfill his mother's simple wish. The instant Tang Xiu sets foot in the aisle, the bustling noise stops. All heads turn, fixing him with expressions of disdain, contempt, and outright loathing. Before he can process the hostility, a thin, tall classmate named Yang Jian points directly at him, his voice ringing out clearly. "Tang Xiu, this place doesn't welcome you. Roll out to us." The classroom erupts into a chorus of harsh voices echoing the demand, drowning Tang Xiu in incisive screams of rejection. Just as Tang Xiu prepares to demand an explanation, a loud, jarring "Guangdong" echoes through the room. The hysterical shouting halts immediately. In the back row, a massively built, fatty youth named Yuan Chuling has stood up, having slammed his chair against his desk. The room falls into a sudden, deathly silence, as if the sheer force of Yuan Chuling's action has physically seized the neck of their hysteria. Yuan Chuling indignantly defends Tang Xiu, challenging the classmates. "Tang Xiu's poor score wasn't his choice. I sit next to him. I've seen his effort. You people couldn't catch up to him even before his accident. What right do you have to yell at him now?" He tells them that whether Tang Xiu stays or leaves is none of their business, arguing passionately for his friend and calling out the classmates' jealousy and opportunistic behavior. After a long silence, Yang Jian mutters, weakly accusing Yuan Chuling of showing off and comparing him and Tang Xiu to 2 grains of old mouse excrement, spoiling the class average. Yuan Chuling explodes, slamming his foot down and flipping his chair, his eyes fixed on Yang Jian, demanding he repeat the insult. Terrified, Yang Jian pales and looks away. Yuan Chuling sneers, dismissing Yang Jian as a coward who will carry bags for others after entering society, regardless of his grades. Yuan Chuling settles back down. Due to the excessive force used moments ago, the old chair finally gives way with a crash. Yuan Shuling flails, sending his hands and feet flying chaotically, before landing hard on the ground with a loud, pitiful wail. The remaining tension instantly dissipates. Some students can't help but laugh. Tang Xiu, initially concerned, catches a swift wink from the grounded Yuan Shuling, instantly realizing the entire fall was a bitter meat play orchestrated to diffuse a conflict and soften the student's perception of his earlier aggression.
Sufficed noisily? Stop it! A sudden, ice-cold voice cuts through the amusement. Hu Shang, the class teacher, enters the classroom, his expression grim. He sternly lectures the students, criticizing their lack of decorum and questioning if they truly possess the appearance of key class students. His gaze sweeps over the class, finding only Tang Xiu, Yuan Shuling, and Yang Jian unafraid to meet his eyes. He then focuses on Yang Jian, asking what caused the chaos.
Yang Jian, emboldened by the teacher's support, launches into a highly colored narrative. He accuses Tang Xiu of being late and neglecting his studies. He then dramatically shifts to Yuan Shuling, painting him as a violent threat who slammed furniture, taunted the other students, boasted about his ability to tidy them up in a minute, and generally disrupted the key class environment. Hu Shang's face twists with further repugnance as he listens to the biased account.
Hu Shang locks his fierce eyes onto Tang Xiu, shouting about his recent failure. 37 points out of 750, the lowest score in the entire grade. Do you know how many people laughed because of this? Do you think I want you here? Your mother has repeatedly kneeled down and desperately begged me to keep you. He screams about Tang Xiu's broken promises to study harder, noting that his score only ever drops lower each time.
After nearly 10 minutes of continuous roaring criticism, Hu Shang delivers his ultimatum. He informs Tang Xiu that he has submitted an application to the principal. Either you are dismissed or you are transferred to another class. Our class cannot shelter you any longer. Otherwise, I will resign my post as class teacher. Hu Shang, having vented his fury, begins criticizing other students' poor performance until the study hall bell rings, signaling the end of the session. He storms out, leaving behind an atmosphere of heavy, sorrowful silence. Tang Xiu's gaze fell upon his desk, piled impossibly high with examination papers marked by red zeros, a stark contrast to the neatly organized textbooks beneath. He realized that despite recovering his immortal memories, he first needed to solve his academic problems. He whispered that he must study earnestly, otherwise his mother would be devastated if he were expelled due to his dismal results, solidifying his new commitment to earthly duties. Tang Xiu recalled his past academic brilliance, entering Star City First High as the top student. The sudden traffic accident during High 2 had damaged his soul, plummeting his grades from first place to last, suffering a catastrophic decline in memory and comprehension. To honor his mother's wish, he understood he needed to independently master 2 years of content in 3 short months, a daunting task that was now, miraculously, no longer impossible for the returning Immortal Supreme. Just as he began his review, a heavy weight landed on his shoulder. It was his deskmate, Yuan Shuling, affectionately called Fatty. Yuan Shuling whispered, urging him to quit wasting gung fu, asserting neither of them were cut out for studying. Tang Xiu recognized Yuan Shuling as a genuine friend and fellow sufferer. They had both fallen from grace, though Yuan Shuling's decline stemmed from personal tragedy, while Tang Xiu's was due to soul damage. Tang Xiu reflected on Yuan Shuling's history, a bright student who turned disruptive after his parents' divorce, engaging in fights and skipping classes, purposefully becoming a loathing difference. Yuan Shuling then interrupted Tang Xiu's attempt to encourage studying, stating that their situations were different, concluding with deep resignation, "My this lifetime this." Yuan Shuling's mood instantly became low, contrasting with Tang Xiu's motivation driven solely by his mother's well-being. Staring intently, Tang Xiu asked Yuan Shuling why he still attended class if he hated school, suggesting he still deeply loves the study and was only being deliberately bad to hurt his parents. Tang Xiu pressed him, explaining that while the divorce hurt, his behavior only caused further pain to himself and his parents, who still loved him. This unusual display of empathy and ideological counseling shocked Tang Xiu, recalling the arrogance of his former Immortal World Supreme self. Yuan Chuling confessed he simply could not get over an emotion, then quickly shifted the topic to the threat of expulsion by their teacher, Hu Qiusheng, Old Autumn Tiger. Tang Xiu, however, was indifferent, noting a change of environment might be better. Tang Xiu felt a warmth toward his friend. Yuan Chuling had stood by him and maintained him, even when Tang Xiu was suspected of mental disability and was at his poorest point. Tang Xiu confirmed his acceptance of Yuan Chuling as a genuine friend. Yuan Chuling suddenly scrutinized Tang Xiu, asking if he had become a completely different individual. Tang Xiu's eyes grew increasingly bright with excitement as he confirmed, "My brain restored now normally." He thanked Yuan Chuling for his attendance during his decline, and with a hearty smile, thumped his friend's chest. Tang Xiu declared he was handing over the first throne from the bottom, the position of last place, to Yuan Chuling, confirming his immediate return to academic dominance. Overcome with happiness, Yuan Chuling immediately seized Tang Xiu's arm, declaring they must go celebrate and completely ignoring the class bell ringing clear. He dragged Tang Xiu toward the classroom exit, fully intending to skip class. Tang Xiu, though protesting due to discipline, was unable to contend with Yuan Chuling's massive build and strength. However, they were abruptly stopped at the entrance by the stiff figure of their mid-aged class teacher, Hu Qiusheng. Yuan Chuling, feeling guilty that the once disciplined Tang Xiu was now skipping class because of him, quickly concocted a lie. He claimed Tang Xiu was unwell and needed to visit the medical office, requesting a half-hour leave. Hu Qiusheng frowned, sweeping a swift, fierce gaze over Tang Xiu, offering to escort them with biting cold air in his words. Yuan Chuling, sensing the teacher's suspicion, hurried to shake his head, dragging Tang Xiu back to their seats immediately. Hu Qiusheng mounted the platform, coughed lightly, and then forcefully read a document. Schoolmate Tang Xiu no longer is the Class 5 student. The following 3 months, Tang Xiu will go to Class 10 to go study. Tang Xiu's heart constricted, and his face turned deathly white. This public transfer was a malicious slap to his dignity. Immediately, the classroom erupted in loud, slating applause, relieved that the student dragging down their academic average was finally gone, while Yuan Chuling grasped his fists in rage. Class teacher Hu Sheng's gaze dropped upon Tang Xiu, a curve of taunt lifting the corner of his mouth. He recalled the regret he felt when Tang Xiu, once the city's top student, had fallen so far. Hu Sheng had worked hard to recruit Tang Xiu to his class during High 1, basking in the glory of the stellar test results Tang Xiu brought in. But everything changed after the accident in High 2. The decline had been rapid. Plagiarism, cheating, and fighting incidents soon followed the drop in his scores. Although Hu Qiusheng never truly investigated the truth, once Tang Xiu's academic record offered no hope, the student fell completely out of the teacher's attention. Hu Qiusheng's focus was now solely on officially expelling him from the prestigious key class. Suddenly, a clear voice broke the tension. "Teacher Hu, if you insist on expelling Tang Xiu from this class, I request to move to Class 10 to study with him." Yuan Chuling, stubbornly staring down Hu Qiusheng, recognized the decision was final and spoke up in defense of his friend. Tang Xiu, silently tidying his desk, froze in astonishment. Tang Xiu knew Yuan Chuling's situation was different. His parents held immense power in Star City, making Yuan Chuling untouchable. Hu Qiusheng would never risk offending him. Hu Qiusheng frowned, annoyed by Yuan Chuling's repeated provocation of his authority. Yuan Chuling, regarding changing classes, I will solicit your parents' suggestions. If they agree, I will not stop you. Now, sit down. We must start class. Within minutes, Tang Xiu swept his belongings off his desk and began walking toward the classroom exit. Yuan Chuling, still pondering how to keep Tang Xiu in the key class, was startled. "Boss, are you leaving?" he cried out. Tang Xiu merely brandished his book bag toward Yuan Chuling, his face a bright, decisive smile, saying, "Going to the place I should go." Yuan Chuling's scream startled Hu Qiusheng, who turned to see Tang Xiu nearing the classroom entrance. In a fit of rage, Hu Qiusheng pounded the platform. "Tang Xiu, this is school hours. Who told you that you could just walk out whenever you like?" Hu Qiusheng's face was a scowl of pure fury. Tang Xiu gazed coldly at Hu Qiusheng for a moment. Then a thoughtful smile spread across his face. "Old Autumn Tiger, I am no longer a student of this class. Can you still manage me?"
In the past, Tang Xiu had endured Hu Chusheng's insults in silence, but now, having been dismissed, he disdained haggling with him. However, recalling months of contemptuous insults, Tang Xiu was driven beyond forbearance. Tang Xiu did not give Hu Chusheng the opportunity to respond. With a quick stride, he stepped forward and left the classroom. His use of the forbidden nickname Old Autumn Tiger left Hu Chusheng frozen and the entire class dumbfounded. Although students whispered this name in secret, no one dared utter it openly, fearing the teacher's explosive wrath.
It took a long while for Hu Chusheng to recover, panting heavily. By then, Tang Xiu had vanished. You counter. I don't believe I can't discipline you." His fury caused his whole body to tremble. Before he could rush out to pursue Tang Xiu, another voice echoed in the classroom.
"Old Autumn Tiger, since you agreed to let me go to class 10, bye-bye. And before I leave, I'll give you some advice. Making Tang Xiu leave this class is the stupidest thing you have ever done. You will absolutely regret it." Yuan Chuling carried his desk toward the exit, winking at the enraged teacher. Hu Chusheng remembered Yuan Chuling's powerful parents.
Yuan Chuling retorted cheerfully, "Old Autumn Tiger, since the boss left, Grandpa hasn't thought about coming back. You need not ask." Seeing Hu Chusheng look like a furious Buddha, Yuan Chuling felt a lightness in his heart. He walked with a cheerful stride, knowing the severity of his actions. Hu Chusheng refrained from issuing any further threats, understanding that ruthless words were useless against Yuan Chuling and would only bring contempt upon himself. With his prestige severely provoked, Hu Chusheng couldn't continue the test analysis. He mumbled a few absent-minded words and hastily rushed out of the classroom, heading straight for the principal's office. He needed validation and support for his decision to remove Tang Xiu permanently. In the principal's office, Hu Chusheng recounted the events with highly colored details. "Principal Wei, I strongly request to dismiss Tang Xiu. His academic record is not only bad, but he has no regard for elders and superiors. If we tolerate such a person, he will only disgrace the school." He pleaded loudly for the students' dismissal. Principal Wei Zhentai helped Hu Chusheng to the tea and smiled faintly. "Old Hu, I also want to dismiss Tang Xiu, but you know Teacher Han protects him. She already made a compromise by agreeing to let you expel him from the key class. If you try to fully expel him, we will face countless troubles." Hu Chusheng felt suffocated. He could not understand why Han Qingwu, the class teacher of a regular class and a recent graduate, was protecting Tang Xiu. She was the daughter of the Star City Bureau of Education chief. Teachers, including Principal Wei, dared not offend her, flattering her instead. But why Tang Xiu? "Old Hu, does Tang Xiu's relationship with Teacher Han truly matter?" Wei Zhentai looked at him with a faint smile. "If Teacher Han protects him, we cannot expel him. Furthermore, I received another call this morning from someone who also requested Tang Xiu's expulsion. You would never guess who." Wei Zhentai leaned in conspiratorially. Wei Zhentai responded slowly. "Su Shangwen, chairman of Shangwen Real Estate." Hu Qiusheng's mind raced, recalling the powerful nouveau riche who donated the school dormitory building. Su Shangwen? Tang Xiu offended him. They are from two different worlds. Wait, is it possible Tang Xiu clashed with his son, Su Xiangfei? Wei Zhentai looked doubtful. "Old Hu, you said you studied Tang Xiu's family list. Don't you know his mother's name?" Hu Qiusheng recalled Su Lingyun, the humble woman who had knelt to him repeatedly. His pupil suddenly shrank. "Principal, are you telling me Su Lingyun is related to Su Shangwen?" But he immediately refuted the idea. If they were related, Tang Xiu and his mother wouldn't be destitute. Wei Zhentai neither confirmed nor denied the relation. He continued, "Su Shangwen contributes enormously to the school, but with Teacher Han backing Tang Xiu, I couldn't meet his impolite request for full expulsion. I agreed to simply adjust Tang Xiu to class 10. I think he should be satisfied." Hu Chusheng had long desired to expel Tang Xiu from his key class, believing his persistence had won the day. Now, listening to the principal,
He realized his victory was merely a byproduct of Su Shangwen's influence adding fuel to the fire. He had benefited from the external political pressures. Remembering Tang Xiu's taunt, "Old Autumn Tiger," and Yuan Chuling's scornful words, Hu Chusheng discovered that, despite winning the battle to remove Tang Xiu, he had ultimately lost prestige.
Tang Xiu stood calmly outside the infamous Class 10 classroom. Yuan Chuling, hauling their furniture, approached and questioned his boss's strange hesitation to enter the class they were just transferred to.
Yuan Chuling firmly refused to leave his boss. He declared his loyalty and boasted of his fighting prowess, claiming he feared no one and could walk sideways anywhere in Shuangkrang province. Tang Xiu smiled bitterly, recalling Yuan Chuling's background as the heir to a 100 million property empire. Just as they settled their pact, a female student jogged up, curiosity etched on her face. She greeted them with a crisp, friendly tone. Her low-key but fashionable appearance instantly captivated both boys. Chang Yanan advised them to wait for the teacher and casually moved to push open the classroom door. Tang Xiu's senses went into overdrive. His enhanced awareness caught the hushed, excited anticipation within the classroom, instantly recognizing the signs of a malicious trap aimed at the door. In a shocking display of self-preservation and awareness, Chang Yanan lifted her beautiful leg and drove a powerful kick into the classroom door. The planned trap sprung violently, sending the broom and dustpan crashing down in a cloud of dust and noise. Chang Yanan promised to cover them in class and strode confidently into the silenced classroom. Tang Xiu noted the continuous sighs of disappointment inside, followed quickly by students scrambling to hide the evidence. Suddenly, the distinct da-da rhythm of high heels echoed down the corridor, announcing the arrival of Class 10 teacher. The teacher, Hong Qingwu, was a vision of elegance, beautiful, simple, yet passing nobility. Her perfect features and striking fashion sense stunned Tang Xiu momentarily, causing him to stare. He immediately realized she bore an unexpected similarity to a female friend from the Immortal World, throwing him off balance. Han Qingwu, pleased with his response, confirmed his transfer into Class 10. She emphasized that the following months would be spent together, and expressed hope that Tang Xiu, known for his intelligence, could create a miracle in the upcoming college entrance exams for her class. Han Qingwu, having secured Tang Xiu's transfer, finally noticed Yuan Chuling looming in the doorway. Seeing the enormous youth awkwardly hauling a desk, she suppressed a chuckle, her chest visibly fluctuating. Turning to Yuan Chuling, she welcomed him warmly, overriding class teacher Hu's authority. She instructed the two unusual students to sit together in the back. Han Qingwu began the introductions. When she presented Tang Xiu to Class 10, a palpable wave of disapproval swept through the room, punctuated by audible hissing and whispering. Having heard the reputation of the failing student who had somehow avoided expulsion, the class was openly judgmental. Tang Xiu ignored them, but the sensitive Yuan Chuling instantly turned pale with fury. Tang Xiu subtly gripped Yuan Chuling's sleeve, halting his instinctive move to fight. Han Qingwu quickly restored order with a light cough, demonstrating strong classroom control. She immediately began the lesson, instructing the students to retrieve their monthly test papers for explanation. To Tang Xiu's shock, the entire session was conducted exclusively in fluent English, without a single word of Chinese explanation. He found himself utterly unable to comprehend the content, realizing his unfamiliarity with academic English. After struggling for 3 miserable minutes, Tang Xiu dejectedly gave up on following the lecture. He realized his vocabulary was too deficient to keep pace with Han Qingwu's rapid instruction. Accepting defeat for the moment, he pulled out a thick English dictionary, resolving to enrich his vocabulary first. Observing Tang Xiu's action, Yuan Chuling, equally lost, brightened immediately and followed suit, pretentiously opening a large Oxford dictionary. Despite her earnest explanation of the test papers, Han Qingwu's attention was fixed on Tang Xiu. When she saw him give up and retreat into his dictionary after less than 10 minutes, a look of profound loss crossed her face. Her initially soaring mood plummeted instantly. For the remainder of the class, Tang Xiu remained buried in his reading, ignoring the world. Han Xingwu's gaze swept over him several times, settling into final, deep disappointment. The moment Han Qinwu departed, the classroom erupted, instantly transforming from silent diligence to a seething hubbub. Students began exchanging notes on the painful joy of attending Teacher Han's class, bragging about pretending to understand everything to avoid disappointing her, and openly admiring her graceful figure. But the conversation quickly turned hostile when they noticed Tang Xiu and Yuan Chuling still engrossed in their dictionaries. Yuan Chuling was caught completely off guard. He had been so focused on acting scholarly that he hadn't noticed the shift in hostility. Suddenly, a grating voice snapped at him. "New kid, are you installing a deaf person act? We're talking to you." Before Yuan Chuling could react, a swift palm smacked the dictionary out of his hand, sending it flying onto the floor with a thud. Just as Yuan Chuling prepared to strike, Tang Xiu's indifferent voice cut through the tension. "Fatty, don't forget the words I spoke to you on the corridor." The icy warning instantly froze Yuan Chuling, who wilted like frost-hit eggplant. But then the grating voice returned, mocking Yuan Chuling further. "Coward, others bullied you right over your head. If you have the skill, stand up and fight." Yuan Chunling realized the taunter was Tang Xiu's younger cousin, Su Xiangfei. Seeking Tang Xiu's opinion, Yuan Chunling hesitated. Tang Xiu merely smiled, a chilling expression. "Su Xiangfei, are you sure you want to keep playing this game? If you find it interesting, I don't mind playing along." Su Xiangfei's body tensed. The words instantly triggered the terrifying memory of being interrogated at the police station yesterday afternoon. He froze, unable to utter the defiant counterattack he planned. Just as Su Xiangfei rustled with fear, a clear, authoritative voice sounded from behind him. "What's with all the gathering here? Do you owe me a beating?" Su Xiangfei, reacting purely on instinct, snapped back. "Cheng Yanan, I haven't provoked you. Don't be a busybody." His retort proved unwise. Cheng Yanan snorted coldly, immediately grabbed his collar and dragged him away, intent on addressing his prior actions of leaving a broom and dustpan outside the classroom door.
Su Xiangfei, panicking, screamed out a threat. "Chen Yanan, if you harass me again, I'll find people from society to cope with." He was immediately cut off by Chen Yanan's cold psha. The next moment, his body soared into the air, flying uncontrollably. He landed several seconds later with a dull thud, raising a cloud of dust. Unhurt but humiliated, he cursed. "Chen Yanan, you stinking girl! You threw father toward the trash can!"
Cheng Yanan's stare was cold and ruthless. "If your mouth continues to be so cheap, I won't mind flinging you into the trash can next time." Su Xiangfei instantly choked, his face reddening, silenced completely. Having dealt with the ringleader, Cheng Yanan turned her fiery gaze upon the rest of the silent, terrified classmates. They dared not move or speak, their eyes torching her with frustrated fury. Satisfied with the punishment and the effect it had, Cheng Yanan announced loudly, "You all remember this. Tang Xiu and Yuan Chuling are my good friends. If anyone dares to bully or make fun of them later, I will personally settle the score." She then swaggered over to Tang Xiu and slapped his shoulder with a loud smack. "As a man, you need courage and uprightness, otherwise you walk the world in vain." Without waiting for a response from Tang Xiu or Yuan Chuling, Cheng Yanan continued her declaration. "You can rest assured, with me here, you won't face any bullying in this class. If anyone insults you, just tell me freely, and I will certainly take responsibility." Su Xiangfei, still recovering, watched the scene with bitter envy, unable to comprehend why Tang Xiu consistently received help whenever he faced trouble. The rapid farce concluded as quickly as it began. As the class bell rang, signaling the start of the next period, the students surrounding Tang Xiu and Yuan Chuling instantly dispersed, rushing back to their seats. Yuan Chuling, still processing the swift sequence of events, finally pushed Tang Xiu's arm. His face was full of narcissism. "Boss," Yuan Chuling whispered, "did I change? Did I lead the charge a little? How else could Cheng Yanan have pulled off that courageous hero rescues the beautiful act?" Tang Xiu shot him an ill-humored glance. "Go to the restroom after class, then you'll know exactly how much you've changed."
Before Yuan Shuling could attempt a counterattack or question his meaning, he realized Tang Xiu had already shifted his full attention back to the English dictionary, completely ignoring him once more. Yuan Shuling sighed, realizing Tang Xiu was done talking, and reluctantly settled back down, leaving his curiosity unanswered until the next break. Tang Xiu's recovered memory was terrifyingly perfect, like a camera, instantly imprinting any book he glanced at into his mind-sea. As the college entrance exams drew near, the classroom atmosphere quieted, leaving Tang Xiu and Yuan Shuling undisturbed in their corner. In just 2 days, Tang Xiu consumed a massive, multi-centimeter-thick English dictionary, installing it completely into his mind-sea. His classmates, including Yuan Shuling, simply thought he was turning pages out of boredom, unaware of his staggering comprehension. Following his mastery of vocabulary, Tang Xiu spent the next day completely internalizing all high school English teaching materials, effectively solving the entire subject. He realized he could now fluently hold conversations with his English teacher, Han Qingwu. Shortly afterward, Tang Xiu devoured the language textbooks. He compulsively scanned all the language examination papers and outstanding thesis anthologies on his desk, discovering to his amazement that solving these complex tests had become pure enjoyment. With the formidable memory subjects, English and language, conquered, Tang Xiu shifted his focus to the 3 remaining sciences, physics, chemistry, and biology. Relying on his terrifying memory and comprehension, he completely internalized these subjects in just 10 days. Tang Xiu truly cherished this peaceful life, a stark contrast to the endless slaughter of the immortal world. He spent his days between school, the cafeteria, and the dormitory, enjoying the novel experience of investing time and energy into mundane matters outside cultivation. Barely half a month had passed before boredom set in. Tang Xiu realized suddenly he had nothing left to study. Any exam paper, any mathematical Olympiad topic, any theorem, he could complete with perfect ease and counterpush any derivation. As Tang Xiu's vision idly swept across the room, it landed on Su Shangfei. He saw the pure hatred in Su Shangfei's eyes, and in that instant, Tang Xiu grasped the meaning of something vital, sobering him immediately. Could I forget cultivation? He questioned. Although Earth lacked the constant slaughter of the immortal world, he still needed self-preservation ability. Tang Xiu decisively accessed his massive memory storehouse, starting the search for a suitable cultivation technique. The cosmic genesis art was ruled out. It cultivated naturally while he slept, but any intentional initiative brought agonizing pain. He possessed too many techniques and martial skills. His worry was not lacking one, but choosing the right one. In 10 days, Tang Xiu tried countless high-ranked techniques. He quickly discovered that the innumerable, dearly fought-for secret martial skills of the immortal world were useless vase ornaments here, due to his frail current body, low aptitude, and Earth's thin spiritual ki. Undeterred, Tang Xiu carefully recalled the deep memories of his original body, the playboy, from childhood. Through difficult extraction, he managed to recall several low-requirement initial heart methods that required minimal aptitude and spiritual qi. For the following week, Tang Xiu patiently attempted these basic, outstanding mnemonics, one by one, but the earth-born body's aptitude was agonizingly low, worse than even the lowest-status half-sorcerer clan in the immortal world. A full month passed. Tang Xiu, merely laboring without achievement, grew hot and bothered. He ceaselessly encouraged himself. Calm. I must be calm. Immortal techniques are wide-ranging and profound. There must be a suitable cultivation method I haven't attempted yet. His odd behavior, sitting daily in a daze, ignoring questions, and no longer studying, went unnoticed by many, but not by Yuan Shuling. Yuan Shuling's heart sank, looking at Tang Xiu with growing anxiety and worry. In secret, Hang Qingwu and Cheng Yanan, who had been quietly caring for Tang Xiu, were also very distressed by his apparent regression. Meanwhile, others felt subconsciously relieved, some even starting to take pleasure in his perceived misfortunes.
At home, Su Shangfei gleefully reported the change to his mother, Zhang Meiyun. He puts on airs merely for half a month. Now he just sits there being distracted. Zhang Meiyun instantly perked up, relieved to hear the news. Han Qingwu called Tang Xiu to her office, distressed that he wasn't in the condition to perform. She revealed she had bet her next month's salary on his results, pleading with him in a charmingly anxious way to focus and help her keep her wages. In a trance driven by the fierce memory of betrayal and seeing Han Qingwu and Shui Qingcheng as one, Tang Xiu abruptly seized Han Qingwu's body, pulling her violently into his embrace, and maliciously nipped toward her mouth. Han Qingwu let out a subconscious squeal. Tang Xiu confronted teacher Han Qingwu regarding her promises, protecting him and caring for his future. Han Qingwu, still immersed in her own earnest commitment, layered on her affirmations. Tang Xiu pressed her further, asking what would happen if he failed the upcoming test. She hesitated, remembering her reckless bet with Hu Qiusheng, and resignedly stated she'd sacrifice a month's salary. Left alone, Han Qingwu pondered Tang Xiu's sudden change. He had spoken clearly and coherently, making her feel like she had intentionally jumped into a trap. She recalled rumors from Yuan Chuling about Tang Xiu having secretly recovered from his traffic accident injuries, contradicting her recent observations of him being constantly dazed and uninvolved in class. Tang Xiu returned to the Class 10 classroom, where his friend Yuan Chuling anxiously greeted him, asking if Teacher Han had criticized him. Tang Xiu reassured him that Han Qingwu only encouraged him to perform well. Tang Xiu then asked Yuan Chuling about his own preparations for the upcoming monthly test, which was a critical practice run for the college entrance exams. Yuan Chuling confessed that his learning efficiency was significantly improved in the new environment, projecting he could test into the faculty level within 2 months. Tang Xiu dismissed this goal as insufficient. He patted Yuan Chuling's shoulder, setting their sights higher, key undergraduate programs, or even a prestigious brand-name university. Amidst the intense anticipation of all high school seniors, the second monthly test of the semester officially commenced. This test was crucial, mimicking the format and difficulty of the actual college entrance exams. It was Tang Xiu's first major assessment since his soul's return, marking a turning point. The students from different classes were mixed and alternatingly seated, separating professional training tracks, liberal arts, and sciences to minimize cheating. As Tang Xiu looked around, Cheng Yanan, sitting behind him, leaned forward and whispered encouragement, urging him to test well and warning that she would look down upon him if he disappointed her. 2 examination proctors entered the room. They quickly scanned the examinees, emphasized discipline, and then slowly began distributing the papers. When the proctor reached Tang Xiu's desk, he stopped briefly and showed a condescending smile. Tang Xiu recognized him immediately, Xia Mingjie, his former physical education teacher from Class 5. Tang Xiu did not immediately start writing. He first swept through the entire examination paper, confirming there were no errors or missing questions. Simultaneously, all the required knowledge nodes for the test instantly flashed through his mind-see. With this confirmation, Tang Xiu began writing with incredible speed and fluidity. In less than half an hour, Tang Xiu finished every section of the test except for the final essay. His speed was phenomenal, but he was completely focused on the last topic. The essay prompt asked, "If father's love is like a mountain, what is mother's love like? Describe maternal love in no less than 1,000 characters." The essay topic instantly triggered overwhelming emotions. Tang Xiu's father had passed away when he was only 3, leaving him to grow up bound by destiny to his mother. She had stalwartly raised him, taught him manners, and never abandoned him, even when his brain was damaged after the traffic accident. Tang Xiu remained trapped in his powerful recollection for a long time, unaware that he had become the focal point of the entire examination place. Students began to whisper, pointing out the weeping Tang Xiu, the former city first, reduced to grade first from the bottom, confirming their belief that his head was still damaged. The 2 proctors noticed Tang Xiu's unusual behavior. Initially, since he was only weeping silently and not disrupting others, they kept silent.
However, as more examinees started noticing and discussing him, the proctors decided they had to intervene, possibly even expelling him.
Xiao Mingjie gently superseded Ron Pan. He approached Tang Xiu's seat and softly knocked on the desk, reminding him that the examination was ongoing and urging him to make the best use of the remaining time to answer earnestly, lest his test be harmed.
Tang Xiu discovered an hour had passed, leaving less than 30 minutes. He hastily began writing the 1,000-character thesis. Meanwhile, Ran Pan complained to Xiao Mingjie, arguing that Tang Xiu's effort level meant his result wouldn't be affected regardless of how long he sat there weeping.
Xiao Mingjie sighed deeply, reiterating the tragedy of Tang Xiu's situation. He expressed immense pity, noting that before the traffic accident over a year ago, Tang Xiu's future had been undeniably bright. He lamented the boy's severe decline from city first to the bottom of the grade.
Xiao Mingjie vividly recalled Tang Xiu's speech when he won the Olympics physics competition, noting that the students' bearing and aspiration made the teachers, including himself, feel ashamed of their inferiority. The former teacher couldn't help but sigh, confirming that Tang Xiu was truly a case of heavens are jealous of outstanding talents.
Ran Pan, momentarily fueled by wishful thinking, asked Xiao Mingjie if he thought Tang Xiu's brain could miraculously return to normal in the final few months before the exams, allowing him to make vigorous efforts to catch up and recapture his former glory. Xiao Mingjie's momentary hope quickly faded to low spirits. He had been hoping for that miracle for over a year, but it never appeared. Now, Tang Xiu was expelled from the key class, and with only 2 short months remaining until the college entrance exams, even if his brain fully recovered, his results would be incredibly difficult to pursue. Despite a rocky start, Tang Xiu completed the morning language test feeling confident, anticipating a score above 140. While his peers headed back to their dorms for rest, Tang Xiu opted for a different path entirely. He slipped out of Star City First High and crossed the street, heading directly toward the vast provincial library. For the past half-month, Tang Xiu found the school textbooks wholly insufficient. His purpose in the provincial library wasn't just academic study, it was far more critical. He needed to substantiate the complex ideas forming within his mind-sea to define his future cultivation path. The afternoon brought the math test. To the shock of the proctors and students, Tang Xiu finished the entire exam in merely half an hour. He quietly stood up, collected his things, and walked out, causing an immediate uproar among the intensely focused class. The school had specifically increased the test difficulty to maximize pressure on the senior students. For Tang Xiu to finish so quickly, onlookers jumped to the only logical conclusion: he found the paper too difficult and abandoned the test entirely out of frustration. Outside, 2 teacher proctors gossiped. They worried about Tang Xiu's apparent failure and the impact it would have on their Class 10 reputation, fearing that they had disappointed teacher Han Qingwu and handed a victory to rival teacher Hu Qiusheng. As the first day of testing concluded, intense discussions broke out among the seniors. Tang Xiu, however, remained aloof, his mind consumed by the vast, smoke-like cultivation method spreading within his mind-sea. A wave of disappointment washed over him as the latest technique and martial skill he analyzed in his mind-sea failed the internal simulation for cultivation feasibility. He frowned deeply, grappling with a critical realization. His friend Yan Chuling, oblivious to Tang Xiu's inner turmoil, excitedly bumped his arm. Yan Chuling was thrilled with his own test performance and hopeful for the remaining subjects, thanking Tang Xiu for his mentorship. Tang Xiu hesitated, then softly replied, "Should I even count my test?" His words instantly triggered a wave of ridicule from nearby classmates who had witnessed his behavior in the examination room. The comments cut deep, accusations that he cried during the language test and abandoned the math exam. The students mocked his arrogance and boasting gung-fu, saying that the key class students were fierce only in their lies. Cheng Yannan's disappointed gaze was the most hurtful. Having witnessed Tang Xiu's highly publicized disruptions, even those who held expectations for him were now thoroughly discouraged. Yuan Chuling wished he could retract his words,
and subconsciously looked to Cheng Yanan for intervention. Previously, Cheng Yanan had used her formidable reputation to protect them, ensuring a calm learning environment. But now, she averted her gaze, active as if nothing was happening, signaling a shift in her protection. As the insults continued, Yuan Chuling was about to pound the table in defense, but Tang Xiu coughed lightly, subtly preventing his impulsive action. Tang Xiu then swept his gaze across the taunting students, his expression indifferent. Tang Xiu's simple challenge, if their academic records were so good they wouldn't be sitting in this classroom, ignited the powder keg. The class instantaneously seethed with excitement, turning him into the target of public criticism. The classmates brought up teacher Han Kang-woo, explaining the immense pressure she endured to keep him in Class 10. They begged him to show forgiveness by performing well, so she wouldn't be dismissed or mocked by the school. Instead of arguing, Tang Xiu quoted from the Shi Jing, "Throws me by the Chinese flowering quince, report by the magnificent jade pendant." He concluded by making an audacious, impossible claim. "This time, grade first I shall settle on. Everybody wait and see." The classroom fell into a silence of the dead. It took a long while for the students to process his words, quickly dismissing the claim as typical Tang Xiu boasting. "He'll be grade first from the bottom," they scoffed. The monthly test continued the next day, and so did Tang Xiu's farce. During the integrated subject volume, while other examinees furiously worked through the first page, sweating profusely, Tang Xiu indifferently rose and left. The afternoon English test was no different. Including the listening comprehension, Tang Xiu finished and left in just half an hour. His classmates had barely completed the multiple choice section. The monthly test was officially over. Unlike his peers, Tang Xiu didn't linger to study or rush to the library. He walked impatiently towards the Heizhou Old area, knowing his mother, Su Ling-yun, would have made delicious food waiting. Having moved from the rural area after his admission to First High, the mother and son had endured 3 years of precarious city life, finally accumulating enough to rent a small shopfront. Returning home after his transformation, Tang Xiu shouted for his mother, anticipating a warm reunion, but the sudden halt of movement and the neighbors' expressions of profound pity and sympathy shattered his joy. A dark premonition gripped his heart, compelling him to burst through the doors of the family restaurant, fearing the worst had happened while he was gone. Inside, the restaurant was a scene of utter confusion and chaos. Smashed dishes, cooking oil, and food waste covered the floor. Tables and chairs were overturned and trampled. The walls and floor bore deep gouges and markings, damaged beyond recognition. From the kitchen, the sounds of smashing and violent impact mixed with desperate pleas and wails, driving Tang Xiu's fear into raw fury. He found his mother, Su Ling-yun, desperately clinging to the arm of a burly, middle-aged man, tears streaming down her face. She was imploring him to stop the destruction. The man, identified as Black 3, was the head of a local gang demanding protection money. He sneered, recalling. Black 3 violently pushed Su Ling-yun to the ground. He then stomped a large foot down onto a giant saucepan near her prone body. The resulting quang-dong bang was deafening, and immediately torrents of steaming hot boiling water cascaded from the overturned pan, rushing directly toward his mother. A wave of panic and instinct.
"Mother, burns carefully!" Tang Xiu roared, executing a sword step crash landing into the kitchen. In a flash, he shielded his mother and pulled her up from the path of the scalding water. Su Ling-yun, disoriented and panicking, immediately asked if he had eaten, trying to revert to her motherly role before realizing the terrible reality of their destroyed kitchen. Tang Xiu hugged his mother's frail body tightly, his eyes reddening with emotion. "Mother, the weather is early. I am not hungry. Later we go home to eat." But Black 3 harshly interrupted their intimate moment. "Are you also thinking of going home? Without the $5,000 today, your mother and child don't want to go anywhere." Su Ling-yin trembled, holding Tang Xiu close, offering to pay tomorrow, begging Black 3 to let her son go.
Tang Xiu stepped out from behind his mother, his voice cold and steady. "Black brother, I remember our protection fee was only 2,000 currency every month. Why did it suddenly rise to 5,000 this month?" Black 3 was utterly stunned. The youth he remembered as a simple-minded, rash fellow was suddenly articulate, assertive, and radiating confidence. Black 3 gawked, sizing up Tang Xiu with surprised curiosity.
"My grass-year-old mother, does our business need you to teach us?" A slim, green-haired bludger roared, raising his palm to slap Tang Xiu's face. Before the hand could connect, sharp glass shards, somehow dislodged from the floor, flew upward together. They maliciously dug into the bludger's wrist, immediately drawing blood. The thug shrieked in pain, distracted from his attack, completely unaware of the supernatural ability Tang Xiu had just displayed.
The pitiful bludger stumbled. Tang Xiu did not give him a chance to recover. In a decisive movement, Tang Xiu's foot slammed down onto the thug's knee, shattering it and dropping the screaming man directly to the floor. Tang Xiu followed up instantly, stepping his other foot firmly onto the thug's face, completely silencing his painful cries. This violent speed and ruthlessness shocked the remaining 5 thugs, who finally roared and rushed Tang Xiu in an uncontrollable rage. As 5 bludgers charged, Tang Xiu's excitement surged. He checked his soul, sending the immobilized green-haired thug flying into the 3 thugs ahead. With a sweep of his other foot, he knocked down the remaining left rear attacker, who landed squarely in the boiling water, crying out in agony. The last opponent punched, but Tang Xiu sneered, stretching out 2 fingers to poke the opponent's wrist, seizing and neutralizing the fist mid-air. He then turned to Black 3. "Black 3, you destroyed our restaurant. Now let's discuss compensation."